reading from Canto 1, Chapter 7, and text number 6, 176. Okay? So before we start, let's say some prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayesha Bhantreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we're going to read the verse and then the translation and also the purport. Anartho pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre shatvata samhitam anato pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokas ajanato vidvam chakre satvata samhitam anato pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvam chakre satvata samhitam anato pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvam chakre satvata samhitam anato pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam anato pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvam chakre satvata samhitam anato pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvam chakre satvata samhitam. Anato pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. Anato pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. Okay, anartha, things which are superfluous. Upashanam, mitigation. Sakshat, directly. Bhakti Yogam, the linking process of devotional service. Adokshaje, unto the transcendence. Lokasya, of the general mass of men. Ajanata, those who are unaware of. Vidwan, the supremely learned. Chakre, compiled. Satvata, in relation with the supreme truth. Samhitam, Vedic literature. The translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Shri Prabhupada ki. Please repeat after me. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this. And therefore, the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Okay. Purport. Srila Vyasadeva, so the all-perfect personality of Godhead. This statement suggests that the complete unit of the personality of Godhead includes his parts and parcels also. He saw therefore his different energies, namely the internal energy, the marginal energy, and the external energy. He also saw his different plenary portions and parts of the plenary portions, namely his different incarnations also. And he specifically observed the unwanted miseries of the conditioned souls who are bewildered by the external energy. And at last he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. It is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glory, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Revival of the dormant affection of or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So Anato Pashamam Sakshat Bhakti Yogam Adokshaje Lokasya Janato Vidvams Chakre Satvata Samhitam. Okay, so just to have a bit of a recap of the flow of the Bhagavatam and where we are in the conversation. So Vyasadeva had heard from his guru Narad Muni on how to overcome his feeling of dissatisfaction even after undertaking the massive endeavor of dividing the original Veda into 4 parts and also creating a 5th Veda based on ancient histories, also known as the Puranas, to elucidate the core teachings of the Vedas and the concise codes known as the Vedanta Sutra. So therefore, Vedvyas, the first thing that he did was he divided the original Veda into 4. What are the 4 Vedas? Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, Sama Ved, and Atharva Ved. Why did he divide the original Vedas into 4? He divided it because the Vedic mantras had become unclear and confusing for the general mass of people to understand. So they did not know what was the purpose or the ultimate goal of the Vedas. So to help to understand and to elucidate it, he divided the Vedas into these 4. And then what did he do? He gave each of these Vedas to different disciples of his. And then he told them to elaborate on it, and to expand on it, and to try to make the understanding clearer. So all his disciples took like the four principal disciples, each were given responsibility for one Veda, and then they had many different disciples who then expanded and tried to elaborate on those each Veda. But because it went down to different people, different disciples brought out different conceptions, different understandings, and they were conflicting with each other. Now Vedas looked at this and is like, I wanted to elucidate the meaning of the Vedas, but now these disciples have created different understandings, different uh, uh, theories, or different levels of understanding and conceptions. So what he does now is he tries to harmonize them. He tries to get all of them back onto the same page. And so at that point, Vedas writes a summary of the entire different conclusions that are reached by different disciples. And he rates them as the concise code of books known as the Vedanta Sutra. Ved means, of course, the whole book of knowledge. Anta means the end, the summary. And Sutra means like small tips or like concise codes. So Vedanta Sutra, also known as Brahma Sutra, these are the final conclusion of the entire Vedas. Now even this, Vedas was like, this is too complicated for people to understand. It's too complicated and it's too vague. If you look at the sutras, they're just like one line sutras that basically summarize the core principles of the Vedas. But even that is too difficult. So what does he do then? To explain the Vedanta Sutras, he tries to explain it in a story format. What is the story that was written to explain the Vedanta Sutra? Does anyone know? No, story. Story format. Starts with Mahabharata. Vedas writes the Mahabharata. Even after writing the Mahabharata, he's still dissatisfied. He's like, what is the use of this Mahabharata? Because even I'm not finding satisfaction in after writing this Mahabharata. Yeah? So then he feels very dissatisfied, and is concerned that the essence of the Vedas has not yet come to the forefront. And at that moment, Narad Muni appears in front of him, and he says that, what is the reason for your dissatisfaction? And almost immediately, Narad Muni is able to find the root cause of why Vyasadev is still dissatisfied. And he says that the reason why you're dissatisfied is that you're focused too much on the preliminary goals of religion, which are known as the Purushastra. There are 4 Purushastras. How many of you know what those are? The 4 Purushastras are Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Dharma means what? Piety. Artha means what? Economic development. Then Kama means what? Sense gratification. And then finally Moksha, liberation, or release from suffering. So Narad Muni highlighted that by telling the people to follow the 4 Purushastras only, you are actually cheating them. You are misleading the people. Okay? How is that misleading? Because you're not glorifying the Supreme Lord, and you're not highlighting the name, fame, and pastimes of Krishna. So the question then realizes that if the Vedas are talking about the four Purushastras, why should we not go for it? Why is it just following the four Purushastras a cheating religion or a misleading religion? It's because the underlying cause of following the Purushastras is it is still selfish desire. Why do you want to do dharma? Why do you want to follow religion? Because you want to earn. You want to earn money. And you want to earn money to do what? So you enjoy your sense gratification, karma. And after enjoying for such a long time and feeling that that sense gratification is, is temporary, it's full of suffering, then what do you want? Release from suffering. Moksha. Where in the picture in these four things have you considered God? It's all to do with you. You want dharma so that you can get artha, so that you can enjoy, so that after enjoying and you feel suffocated and exhausted, then what do you want? You want release. But it's all selfish. It's nothing to do with Bhagavan. Okay? So that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he declared Prema Pumartho Mahan, meaning that the greatest goal of life is not these four goals of religion. The highest goal of life is love of God. That is the highest. Okay? So after hearing from Narad Muni and heeding his wise counsel and trying to follow the footsteps of his spiritual master, so what did Vyasadeva do? What was happening in the last two chapters of the Bhagavatam? Basically, Narad Muni comes to Vyasadeva and he tells him that I'm telling you my own story of how I became a bhakta, how I was able to get the highest goal of life, and how I found the permanent happiness. And this is what you want. You want that people find permanent happiness. So let me give you my example of how I got it. And I got it because I kept on taking the instructions and the remnants of spiritual masters who I was serving, or my mom was serving them and I was helping her. And so I got the benefit of the association of perfected sages. And then I kept on chanting the Lord's name wherever I went. So the process of hearing and the process of chanting delivered and perfected Narad Muni. Yeah? And so he is telling Vyasadeva to do the same thing. So Vyasadeva follows Narad Muni in doing the process of Bhakti Yoga. Okay? And that is in 174. If you look at 174, where is it? In 174, thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. The Bhakti Yogana Manasi. He engaged, he fixed his mind through which process? Through Bhakti. Only when you fix your mind in Bhakti can you get darshana of Krishna. Yeah? So this is what Vyasadeva did. So from 1.7.4 till 1.7.6, in these three verses, it shows a description of what Vyasadeva saw in his darshan of the Absolute. He saw one, the Absolute Personality of Godhead. But that is not all he saw. He also saw that along with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is the external energy. But that is also not what all he saw. He saw that there are also living entities that are under the control of this external energy. And then what did he see? That these living entities who are under the control of Maya, they are actually suffering. And then finally, he also saw how to deliver them from the suffering. So he saw five things. He saw five things. He saw God, he saw Maya, he saw conditioned souls, he saw the conditioned souls suffering, and he also saw the means for delivering the suffering of the conditioned souls. And what is the process? Bhakti Yoga. Right? Therefore, after seeing this darshana, Vyasadeva had compiled or edited the Srimad Bhagavatam so that it clearly illuminates the glories of the Supreme. So, when he had written the Purana, He had already written the 18 Puranas. In that, he also already written the Bhagavatam. But that Bhagavatam still had a tinge of materialism in it. It was not elucidating the true glories of Krishna. But after the meeting with Vyasadeva, then Vedyas went back and edited the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he edited it in such a way that it became spotless. It became known as the Amala Purana. It became only to do with devotees, Krishna, and Bhakti Yoga. Everything that is there in the Bhagavatam is all on the spiritual platform. There is nothing to do with materialism. So that is why after he had this meeting with Vyasadeva, he edited the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is why it elevated the status of Srimad Bhagavatam from the rest, and it became known as the Amala Purana, the spotless Purana. Okay. Therefore, as it is said in this shlok in 1.7.6, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest revelation of God, and one who follows the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam at once can mitigate the pangs of suffering in material existence and realize his natural, original consciousness of being an eternal servitor of the Lord, engaged in loving reciprocations with Him. So now there's a very, very famous shloka, and this is basically summarizing the entire mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you want to understand what is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this shlok basically summarizes everything. It goes something like this. Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kaschidupasana Vrajavadu Varga Virya Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Amalam Puranam Prema Pumarto Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatradara Paraha. So the first line, Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayas Tad Dhama Vrindavanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is he? He's a son of Nanda Maharaj. Okay? He is to be worshipped along with his transcendental abode Vrindavan. Okay? Now, how do you worship him? The question is, okay, we have to worship the son of Nanda Maharaj. How do you worship him? Then you worship him by saying, the Ramya Kaschid Upasana Vrajavadu Varga Virya Kalpita. The most pleasing form of worship for the Lord is that which was performed by the gopis of Vrindavan. So, okay, we worship Bhagwan. How do we worship Bhagwan? We have to worship Bhagwan in the mood that the gopis worship Bhagwan. Okay? And now, how do we know what was the mood of the gopis? Where do you go? Where do you refer to? Then you go, Srimad Bhagavatam Amalam Puranam Prema Pumarto Mahan. Srimad Bhagavatam is a spotless authority on everything, and pure love of God is the ultimate goal of life for all men. Okay? Now, is this the entire summary? Yes, it is. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Mattam Idam Tatrada Na Paraha. These statements, for which we have the highest regard, are the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is what Mahaprabhu said. Prema Pumarto Mahan. So not the 4 Purushastras. The highest Purushastra is Prema. Because when you get to the stage of Prema, you are transcending from selfish desires into selfless desires. You're giving yourself completely to Krishna. And that is higher than the 4 Purushastras. Okay? So this conclusion was also reached by Jiva Goswami. Now Jiva Goswami is the most accomplished philosopher of the Bhakti theology, and he has written an entire treatise known as the Sat Sandarbha. And the 6 books called the Sat Sandarbha, 6 Sandarbhas. The first one is called Tattva Sandarbha. Now what does Tattva mean? Tattva means truth. but not any kind of truth. Tattva means that truth that is true in all places, at all times, and in all circumstances. It will never change, it will never degrade, or it will never improve because it is already the highest. It will always remain true in the past, present, and future. Always. And then what does Sandarbha mean? Now, Sandarbha is made from the word Sandh. Now, Sandh means to weave or to fix. So, how many of you have heard the word Jarasandh? So, Jarasandh is the name of a demon because he was born in two parts, and then the demon called Jara sewed him up. He sewed him up, and so he became whole. So, Tattva Sandarbha. This is the first book of Jiva Goswami in his treatise of Sata Sandarbha. And in this, he basically establishes that Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest Purana. If you want to know anything regarding Tattva, regarding the absolute truths, then for that you have to go to Srimad Bhagavatam. How does he do it? It's a very, very interesting methodology that he takes. So what Jiva Goswami does is he looks at a very philosophical way of life. He says that, okay, I want to understand what is Tattva. I want to understand what is a truth which is true in every place, at all times, and in all circumstances. How can I ascertain what is the truth? How can I know for certain that this is Tattva? And he says that to know anything, I have to know how I know that. How can I gain knowledge? If I want to understand the true knowledge, I have to first start with understanding how do I get knowledge. So he says, and this in philosophy is known as epistemology, the study of knowledge. So he says that the first way that we can get knowledge just sitting here is pratyaksh praman. We can understand knowledge through our senses. Yeah, we can feel that it is hot. We can feel that it is cold because we are getting knowledge through our senses. But are our senses perfect? Yeah, if there is complete darkness, are our eyes any use? No. So, one step ahead from pratyaksh pramana is anumana pramana. Anu means to follow, man means the mind. So, even those certain things you cannot see them or you cannot perceive them with your senses, logically it makes sense. If I tell you that A equals to B and then B equals to C, then you'll be like, okay, maybe A equals to C. You might not have seen A and C together, so you cannot compare it. But because there is logic that A equals to B and B equals to C, you can make that logical assumption that A is equals to C, right? So in a field of understanding knowledge, pratyaksh is limited, anuman is greater than pratyaksh. But then even that is limited because it is dependent on the experiences and knowledges that you have acquired through your senses over time. Okay? Now, then you said, okay, if pratyaksh is limited, sense perception, if anuman is limited, mental limitations, then what is the third way? Third way is shabda praman. You take knowledge from others. Okay, but what is the problem here? The problem is you are not using your own senses, and you are not using your own mind. But now you're using somebody else's senses and somebody else's mind. And now if they are materially minded, then even they've got limitations. So hearing from such people is also limited. So if we want to get perfect knowledge, we have to hear from others who has got spiritual knowledge, which is not subjected to the 4 defects of material life. Okay? Now you can ask, okay, so the question is, okay, now we have to go to a spiritual source of knowledge, but then there are many spiritual sources of knowledge. There is the Bible, there is the Quran, these are all revealed scriptures. Which one is the best out of all of that? So even there is, to choose something, you always return to some objective measures. Like how can you know whether this glass or this glass is better for me? Or you'll check objectively. Okay, this glass is heavy, or this glass is light, this glass is bigger in size, so it will suit me better. So you have some objective measures in which you can compare different glasses. Yeah, it might be a glass, but one might be a steel glass, one might be a glass, or one might be a gold glass. So there are different types of glasses as well. They're all glasses, but there's different types of it. Which one is the best? So there are different objective measures. Some of these objective measures are detail of philosophy. The highest the highest theology or the highest scripture will have the most detailed philosophy. It will be able to provide a framework to answer every every existential question that we may have in life. Yeah, it can answer all our questions. That if one scripture can do that, you can objectively say that this one is better than another one. Second, it is the intimacy and details of God. Some scriptures will just talk about God being very vague. Oh, God is great. God is this, but they don't give much details about how God is great. But certain scriptures go into the very details of describing what God looks like, describing his activities, describing his names, describing his pastimes, describing his glories. And that shows us how he is great. Another one is how beautiful the expression is, like some of poetry, like how beautifully it has been explained. The quality of culture that is expressed in that theology, either through paintings, either through poetry. Like Sanskrit is such a beautiful language that in very in very little words it can describe a lot about Krishna, a lot about God. So like that, there are many different objective measures. And if we objectively measure all the different revealed scriptures, we will find that the Vedic revelation is the highest of them all. But now you come to another problem. Now in the Vedas, there's so many different types of knowledges. There's the Vedas, there's the Upanishads, there's the Aranyakas, there's so many different ones. Which one should we follow? So over there it is said that the highest revelations are those that are written in the Puranas. Now, the word Purana comes from the word Purna, meaning it's complete. So the Puranas have contained the complete knowledge. Okay, fine. But there are 18 Puranas. Now the 18 Puranas, now what do we do? So there are 18 Puranas, but they are also have got different gradations. There's certain Puranas in the mode of Tamagun, some in the mode of Rajagun, and some in the mode of Satagun. So naturally, if you want to go to the highest, you have to go to the Sataguni Puranas, because that is the highest, the best guna. Now, okay, even if you go there, there's still six of them. There's still six Puranas. And then it is said that within the six, there is still one that reigns supreme amongst all. And that is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And actually, even in the six Puranas that are there in the Satagun, one of them is Skanda Puran, another one is Padma Puran. These two Puranas include 6 chapters called the Bhagavatam Mahatmaya. Within these two Puranas, they are glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. So ultimately, the proof is there that the highest Purana is actually Bhagavad Purana. Okay? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that. Jiva Goswami is saying that. Ved Vyas is saying that himself. So we already know that the highest Purana or the highest revelation of God is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay? So, after understanding that Srimad Bhagavatam is known as the Amala Purana, Now, what does the Srimad Bhagavatam, what does it recommend? What does it recommend one to do? It recommends one to do Bhakti Yoga. Now, how do we start doing Bhakti Yoga? So, if you read the purport again, in the purport, it says, and at last he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. It is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of devotional service. Sorry, it is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glory, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay? So, if you want to look, if you want to actually understand what is the essence of a book, most people will read the conclusion. If you read the conclusion of a particular text, you will get to understand what was the essence of the entire book. So, if you just go and read the last verse of the Bhagavatam, which is Canto 12, verse number 13, chapter 13, and verse number 23, what does it say? Does anyone want to read that? The last verse of the Bhagavatam.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Hari, the congregational chanting of whose holy name destroys all sinful reactions, and the offering of obeisances unto whom relieves all material suffering.
Exactly. He says, Nama Sankirtama Yasya. That the conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam is that you do congregational chanting of the holy name. That is the essence. That is the essence of the Bhagavatam. So if you want to understand what the process of Bhakti Yoga is, it is a process of hearing and chanting. But is this enough? No, it's not enough. Now let's read again back into the purport today of today. Just the next line to what we read. It says, sorry. It says, revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but is solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Just one line before it says that you should do hearing and chanting, and now here it is saying that that is not enough. What is required? The causeless mercy of Krishna. So here it is saying you have to do hearing and chanting, but here the next line only it is saying that is not enough. So how do we reconcile this? So we reconcile this by first starting to do hearing and chanting. Why? And so Prabhupada gives a very nice example that there was once a sparrow, and a sparrow had eggs that were in a tree, and this tree was on the banks of the ocean, right next to the ocean. And wind came and it blew the nest and the eggs into the ocean. And now the sparrow was crying. The sparrow is like really in grief and pleading to the ocean, please give me back my eggs. Please give me back my babies. And the ocean said, I can do nothing. Nothing that can happen now. The sparrow said, you give me back my eggs or else I will drink you dry. And so the ocean started laughing. Look at your size and look at my size. How will you ever be able to do that? I don't believe you. You go. But the sparrow was determined. He kept on taking a small bit of water in its beak, fly out and spit it out into the forest, and comes back, takes a bit of water in the beak, goes outside and spits out in the forest. And everyone was laughing at the sparrow. Like, what is the sparrow doing? Is he gone mental or what? And then this news reverberated throughout the entire universe. And finally it went to who? Who got the news? Garud. Garud got the news. And Garud was melted by this news. It's like, my dear sister sparrow is trying so hard. She's so determined. Let me go help. So then Garud appeared at the scene. And then Garud tells the ocean, that you better give back the eggs or else I will drink you dry. And at that time, Varun Dev said, please, don't do that. Here, take your eggs back. Take the eggs from the sparrow. What does this goes to show? That if we keep on doing our hearing and chanting with determination and doing it for a very long time and with pure heart, that will attract Krishna's attention. And when that attracts Krishna's attention or even Guru's attention, then when they give their mercy, only then will we able to get the love of Godhead. Only then. So, so this is how we can reconcile these two different sentences within the same purpose. But now, again, Prabhupada gives us hope that yes, you have to do hearing and chanting, but that alone is not going to help. But does that mean it's not going to help at all? No, look at the next sentence. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. So he says that not all is lost. In the meantime of us giving our heart, trying to give our heart to Krishna by regularly hearing and by regularly chanting, by taking the time to do this, we are getting purified. And we are getting purified without our knowledge. Just like how when we take a potent medicine, we get cured. Okay? So, especially this is a very nice word that Prabhupada writes, prescribed. He uses the word prescribed. So, if you're sick, you can either first learn everything about medicine to learn which medicine is good for you. Or two, you can surrender yourself to a doctor and then he will give you the right medicine there and then. Which is more logical to do? To surrendering yourself to the doctor rather than you yourself becoming a doctor, learning everything in the medical field to understand which medicine is good for you at this moment. It's so much time consuming and it's pointless. You might not even get to the right answer. You might not even, you might get stuck in reading the medicine books and then your lifetime goes away. So you have lost your chance of getting better. So it's easier to just surrender to an authentic and real doctor who is competent enough to know what is wrong with you and to give you the right medicine. Yeah? So that is why even in the Bhagavad Gita it says in 7:19, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavam mam prapadyante vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. That after many births and deaths, he who is actually knowledge surrenders unto me. So person who is a jnani, after perfecting his jnana, what does he get to? He understands that everything is Vasudev. Vasudeva sarvam iti. And once he gets that realization, then what does he do? Mam prapadyante. He surrenders unto me. It's like going the long route or you take the short route. We are people who like shortcuts. And Krishna is giving us the easiest shortcut in life. To just surrender to him and link to him through Bhakti Yoga. Okay? So the conclusion of this class is to let us take the shelter of the right doctor, which is Yasudev, and immediately execute the process of Bhakti Yoga, having full faith that by doing so, we will achieve the highest goal of life. And what is the highest goal? What did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say was the highest goal? Prema Pumartha Mahan. That the highest goal of life is love of Godhead. And the way to start that process is the process of hearing and chanting. And what? What is the conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Nama Sankirtan. So we have to keep on with full faith, keep on giving our entire being into chanting the Lord's holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If anyone has any questions or comments, please. Yes? Hare Krishna.